Hello, and thank you for joining us. I have to say that I'm really honored to be on a panel with such inspiring leaders that have really been driving change with innovation across the fashion industry. And I congratulate you as you now have become beacons for the next generation to really look at how change can be put into place. You've been trailblazing, and I applaud you for all your great accomplishments. The thing that I'm most struck about with what you've accomplished is how all of you have thought so systemically about fashion, about sustainability, and about innovation. The industry is, and the challenges are not single-purpose, single monolithic solutions. They are broad networks of interconnected pieces, and you've all done a great job in recognizing that. So, so thank you. And today we have with us Stephanie Benedetto, who is the CEO of Queen of Raw, and has, which is a terrific organization where you can quickly and easily buy unused dead stock fabric that's produced around the world. We also have with us Francesca Rosella, who's the CEO and founder of Cute Circuit, which has done some amazing work in developing wearable technologies and integrating them into a new and exciting fashion brand. And lastly, we have Veronica Chow, who is the founder of Everywhere and Everyone, and it's a brand that's really dedicated to creating elevated, everyday pieces that are made from really well thought out and sustainably produced products, as well as processes and services. So with that, I'm going to turn it over and ask Stephanie to give us a little background, tell us who she is and what she thinks.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. My name is Stephanie Benedetto, and I'm the Queen of Raw. I'm on a mission to solve the world's water crisis. And my focus, obviously why we're here, is fashion and textiles, which by some accounts is the second biggest polluter of clean water globally. But if you think about it, that also means that fashion and textiles, we have the power to solve the world's water crisis if we rethink how we do things. So I took a look at this industry and I saw a lot of waste. Every single year, $120 billion worth of unused fabric just sits in warehouses collecting dust or being burned or sent to landfill. And that certainly doesn't make sense for people and planet, but it also doesn't make sense for businesses' profit. So what do we do about it? We built Queen of Raw as a global marketplace with AI-powered supply chain software. So anyone from a student maker, crafter, or quilter to the biggest brands and retailers in the world could buy and sell their unused textiles, keep it out of landfill, and turn what would be pollution into profit. And I'm really proud to say we've saved well over 1 billion gallons of water, and we're just getting started. So never doubt that the actions that you take can't change the world.
And next, we have Francesca Rosella. Tell us a little about you.
Yes, I co-founded Cute Circuit back in 2004, and Cute Circuit is the world's first wearable technology fashion brand. And what does this mean? It means that we design clothing that can do something special because there is microelectronics embedded into it. And the thing that we do is that we create garments that can connect people. So if you are far away from someone, for example, especially during the last pandemic year, you could, for example, exchange a hug over distance. So we've been trying to solve the problem of connectedness by embedding microtechnologies into fashion. But the thing that we're trying to do is that we're trying to do it in a sustainable manner. We're trying to do it in a clean manner. And of course, we're going to do it in a very inclusive manner. And it's not inclusivity in terms of sizing, as you will see later with Veronica. I think that does an amazing job. But this inclusivity in terms of which people can use these garments, and we work with deaf people, with blind people, because we want people to share experiences. And this is really our goal, to make people connect and share moments together.
That's such a beautiful sentiment. So thank you. And it really does speak to the notion that fashion is going to become a service. It's more than just style. And please, Veronica, tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Veronica Chow, and I'm third generation in the fashion industry. So my grandfather started with knitwear manufacturing and also denim factories. So I grew up going to these factories asking, why is it so dusty? What is the smell? Where is this colored water going? And now in sustainability, we're kind of asking the same questions in terms of all the processes and how we make things. And my first business was bringing mass market American brands to China. We launched 12 brands in China and opened over 1,000 stores. But in that process, I experienced firsthand a lot of air pollution and all sorts of pollution. And that really got me asking the questions about what's in our environment, what's in our food, and also sustainability, especially in our fashion industry. I then, with my family, half of my time, I do investments. We have invested in material science companies, for example, one that grows leather in a lab, so we don't have to kill a cow in order to have leather, and other amazing technologies. But from there, I realized, whoa, there's so much interesting things. Let me go start a brand. And I created a brand called Everybody and Everyone. We are quite new, but we are eco-innovative, size inclusive, and we also use design elements like 2-in-1, one item, more uses to enhance our clothes. So, yeah.
That's really great. Terrific, all of you. Thank you so much. You know, the first thing that comes to my mind is we're starting to actually achieve somewhat of a profile in making progress on sustainability, inclusiveness, and looking at sustainability from a perspective of not just environmental sustainability, but culture as well, and economy. What's the next big challenge that you feel that you face as individuals from your specific business perspectives? And I'll start with Stephanie with that.
You know, I think when it comes to sustainability, there's been this myth for so long that solving these problems are going to cost us a lot of money and we can't afford to do it. Therefore, how are we going to adopt any of these solutions? And so a lot of the projects that we had seen come out of the sustainability movement before the pandemic were really focused on kind of small pilot projects or little conscious collections, which are fantastic, don't get me wrong. That puts a stake into the ground as to what this industry cares about and what matters. But my hope for the future and going through the pandemic is that we realize that sustainability can be done automated, it can be done at scale, and it can be profitable for businesses to adopt these kinds of solutions. And I really truly believe that the future supply chain is going to be one that is more on demand, more local, and more sustainable. And so the businesses small to large, going through what we all went through this past year, coming together and thinking about that as the future and who are building and innovating for that, I think those are going to be the ones who not only survive, but truly thrive. And we're really excited to be a part of helping to push that forward.
Great answer. Veronica?
Yeah,
Same
so
question.
for me, I think
What problem, what do you see individually? Sorry.
Yeah, I think what I really believe in is that using innovation, we can solve a lot of these problems. You know, there are now enzymes that can break down plastics. There are, there's one company even making vanilla flavoring from breaking down plastic. And in our fashion industry, there's people using natural silk to use it to replace the synthetic materials, the petroleum-based polyester-based materials. And I think these type of innovations is what kind of really excites me. For example, in our brand, this shirt that I'm wearing is made from regenerative agricultural silk. And so with this regenerative agriculture, so first of all, the farm that grows the mulberry trees are not just organic, but it's a regenerative agriculture where the soil health is restored. And then more carbon dioxide is also captured into the soil. And also the farmers, because they have to do rotational croppings, they have more income, different sources of income. So it's something that's truly better for people and planet. And then in our brand, what we do is we make sure that the raw material, where they make the mills to make the fabric, and then where they make the factory to make the clothing all as close by together in order to reduce our carbon footprint. So these are some of the things that we've implemented, and some other innovations and technology that we do look at. But I think we're still at the very early stage. And one frustration I get is I see these new technologies and sometimes they're still in the lab. And I'm like, when can we have this commercialized? Do we have to wait another 2-3 years? Can it happen tomorrow? And I think that urgency is what excites me and also what gives me hope.
And your answer so succinctly identifies that systemic thinking that is so important to understanding that it's all an ecosystem of interconnected parts. So thank you for that. And I share your frustration. Yes, ideas come fast and furious. Implementation is a tedious and demanding process of testing and evaluating before you come up with a solution. And Francesca, there's lots of notions of what inclusivity means that really expand beyond just sizing, and you start to see where people with disabilities or that need some assistive apparel could really benefit from having some bold innovations in connected fabrics, conductive fibers, and a lot of the I shouldn't say experiments, the early demonstrations of how wearable technology can actually become part of a fashion brand really start to speak to what the future might be.
Yeah, and then you were talking about the development cycles that are a bit long. And I mean, definitely with wearable technology, the development cycles are very long. It's more akin to the development cycle of a sportswear, for example. And the other thing that we deal with is also that it has a longer shelf life. And the thing that you just said that is very important is the inclusive aspect. We are trying to create a value for the consumer, for the wearer. And so I think it's like a number of factors that are completely correlated, and we cannot sort of disjoint one from the other. We really need to think about what the product does, how it allows people to participate in an event, for example, and how also what do we do with this product after its end of life, if there's an end of life, or instead if its life doesn't need to end because it can continue. So we're sort of like trying to tackle the problem from multiple perspectives. And I think that part that the one that really interests me is the inclusivity, but this is because, I mean, everybody shares aspects of their life with other people, but if you think about people that are hearing or visually impaired, these are about around like another world. There are 7 billion people, and there are 1.3 billion people that have this kind of hearing or visual impairment. And I mean, this is a massive market that is not just like people that are just unable to participate. They would love to participate in an event, but they are not able to do so right now because how we design the system in which we consume fashion, it does not allow these people to participate. And so this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to change that. And for example, one of the things that we created is a sound shirt. That is a shirt that is able to convert sound into touch sensations so that deaf people can go to a concert with their hearing friends and sharing the experience together. And this is just really incredible. And I mean, when we design these products, we're not just designers coming up with this great idea and say, yes, you're going to use it like this. We involve deaf people in the design process. We ask them which aspects they like, which aspects we can improve, so that when we design the product, it becomes a product that these people can use, but everybody else can use and have a better experience. Because, for example, I have my deaf friends that can use these garments when they go to a concert or clubbing, but I even use it myself if I'm doing VR. So I can play Beat Saber in VR and feeling the beat, and it's much more immersive. So this is one of the things that I think fashion is really shifting towards, that is more augmented and virtual reality and mixed reality. And I think that that would be really important for the future, also to be more sustainable, but also create new experiences for the wearers.
that whole concept of fashion migrating out of just being appearance and keeping you warm and being so much more functional, so much more responsive to your environment, I got a real insight into that in a project that we did at the DTech lab at FIT, where we were designing apparel for people with cerebral palsy so that they would have a better life. And what really drove home the challenges were a statement one of our mentors really provided to us when we were looking at like the challenges to take on was imagine being in a wheelchair and being out in the rain. What do you do? How do you manage? How do you navigate? So that became a really interesting creative brief to figure out how to design apparel that was responsive, that when you look at it, you realize that, well, it's not just people with cerebral palsy that are going to face it. There's older people. There are people who may have had an accident. So you start to realize that when you look at a challenge, that you see that there's a much bigger community that's served by that. And you could look at the converse of that as designing a particular feature, like you said, the sound shirt. You start to see collateral applications that really open up a much bigger market, which is really kind of an exciting aspect of it. So another question that comes to my mind is, you know, what are the business challenges that are faced? What do you face, Stephanie, as you start to begin to imagine your next tier of development?
Absolutely. You know, as any good business, right, as you start to grow and scale, you're learning more about your customers, the challenges that they're facing, and how you can turn that into opportunities. So for us, when we first started our marketplace, it was obviously and still is a platform to buy and sell unused textiles. And a lot of large brands and retailers loved what we were doing, and they wanted to be able to participate. But it's very easy to add products to a marketplace when you have a handful of products. But what if you have thousands to tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of SKUs of unused inventory that you're looking to sell? How can you do this automated and at scale? And that's where we really saw, as we grow, an opportunity to serve our community. So we ended up building some powerful software and tools that live behind Queen of Raw, leveraging blockchain and machine learning AI to help big companies across industries and around the world quickly and easily find all this waste and unused inventory in their supply chains, of course sell it in our marketplace, but perhaps most importantly, now that they have all this dark data and information about what they had in waste, where does it come from, who does it go to, now we can help them intelligently forecast better and figure out how to minimize those waste streams going forward. And that became a real powerful opportunity for us, because ultimately, I hope we write ourselves out of a marketplace business, because we've solved the waste issue. At that point, we'll have solved the world's water crisis. We'll have everyone on our software and tools, and we can go on to the next challenge. We've got a bit of a ways to get there, but I think through the pandemic, right, we are in a crisis of supply, more unused inventory than ever before, but that is an opportunity for everyone, small to large, to do better. And what's unique about that is you're not just being able to save and make money as a business, but you can also communicate a really powerful story to your end consumers. As we were just talking about the incredible work that Francesca and Veronica do and their brands, being able, with you as an end consumer, to get that product, scan the QR code, and see at point of sale things like the amount of water, the toxins, the carbon emissions, and the dollars you saved by leveraging this dead stock or this sustainable material. What a beautiful, powerful story that is in building for the future.
Great. You know, the idea that your success is measured by you going out of business because you've actually, you know, fulfill the market need. I find that interesting. Do you really think that there will never be a demand for handling overproduction? To me, it seems like that's a great goal and a great and a kind of a great mission. But I think we'll always have need for that. And if it's not just fabric, it'll be some other aspect of the production that will need the kind of research and insight that your platform is providing. Veronica, do you see AI tools offering opportunities to gain insight into your reimagined production workflow?
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, we definitely utilize data to figure out what we need to make for the next season. Is it right now at a perfect place where we can perfectly predict what we should do or should not do? Not yet. And unfortunately, also sometimes because there's so much data, companies are selling better and making people buy more, just through Facebook advertisement. So there's a little bit of both. But I think in our production and design process, one of the big things that we are using in technology is 3D technology. And in the past, if we want to make something in America with a factory in China, you might have to make something, have the product, have a sample shipped back and forth between the two countries, 3 to 4 samples sometimes. And if you do, like for me, I do size inclusive plus size range as well, then there might be extra samples. But now with 3D, we can limit the amount of sampling that we do, reducing our shipping and reducing materials that we use. And I think, these are great tools and technologies that can bring to the world. And also there are companies that are using 3D technologies and using those images on their websites already, and cutting out some photo shoots unnecessarily that might be unnecessary. So I think these are some great technologies. And on the other hand, though, with sustainability, with us using different materials and all that, let's say simply going from cotton to organic cotton, great step. But I think what's interesting now in the industry is like, is there something even better? Is there regenerative cotton that is better than organic cotton? Is there another type of material that can replace cotton? Is there something that is super innovative? And but with all the new things, there's also challenges. And one of the experiences I had is we bought some materials that was new and not in the market yet. And unfortunately, I used my 2 hands and could rip. So we don't want to create that situation, but that's something that's a learning process. And I think that's everyone is growing. And, I definitely think what Queen of Raw Stephanie is doing is absolutely amazing. She's helping the industry so much. And it's a great resource. And also, I think for designers in the future, a great inspiration and how to use waste to create other things. And it is definitely a direction to keep thinking about. If I may add one more thing, there's waste that is already created, sure. Textile waste, but I think there's also waste in other type of industries that, we then utilize. So for example, you can't see it, but the trousers that I'm wearing right now is made from a fermented sugar from agricultural waste. And again, that's a new material. It also feels very amazing. And I've had people ask me, fermented sugar, can you lick the pants? No, you cannot. But it's a great fabric to have. But again, utilizing waste. So I think with sustainability, we look for new things everywhere. And, that's where all the innovation comes from, all different places.
And there's 2 points that you made that I'd like to follow up on. And with 3D, not only are you saving the execution of samples in different sizes, but also different colorways, so that a brand can produce many samples if they have a wide size range where they're producing colorways to make sure that the print placement looks correct and the color blocking looks correct on the different sizes. And 3D really helps you reduce that. It also helps you really figure out some new design ideas, new design direction. It gives you the flexibility to offer product in a much more kind of responsive way, broader range of product, because you can try things out. So there's a lot of exciting opportunities, and using it downstream in the retail end sort of brings both ends of the value chain kind of closer together. It's used in design at the beginning, and it's used in retail in the end, and it helps during manufacturing in the middle. So that's kind of an exciting thing. And when it comes to cotton, not only is the organic a good move, but the cotton industry is really looking at how to grow cotton using far less water and having far less impact on the environment. And then there's another whole range of fabrics that are being produced from very versatile fibers like hemp. So, that kind of innovation and experimentation and research are really what the fashion industry is about right now. So, that's really kind of exciting. I've got some other questions. the supply chain for wearable technology is such a different supply chain than what the traditional fashion industry has used to this date. Francesca, tell us a little bit about those challenges that you face.
Well, thank you. This is a great question. This is just absolutely the most challenging time right now after the pandemic, in which there is a worldwide shortage of microchips, of silicon chips. So obviously, if you have a garment that, I mean, there already are shortages in the fashion industry. Maybe some fabrics have not been manufactured in the correct quantities last year. And now we have like something so tiny as a silicon chip that literally is almost invisible. And I mean, that's part of our garments, right? And there aren't enough of those. And I mean, it's just a very interesting challenge because we are literally merging two worlds together. So we have on one side the supply chain of the fashion industry, and on the other side, the supply chain of the electronics manufacturing industry. And they usually don't really talk to each other. So one thing that we do when we design these products is that we train both factories to learn what the other factory is doing so that it can be integrated in a very simple and straightforward way, in a way that when the electronics factory is done with their part of the product and it goes into the garment factory, we actually have one step in between the normal 3 steps that it would take to make a garment, so that the integration can be done using the same machines that the fashion factories usually use without changing anything. So I think that it's very interesting to try to deal with this sort of like dichotomy and all of a sudden making everybody understand what they're working on. And I remember we used to do a product a few years back that was an illuminated miniskirt that actually could change color at the touch of a button in an app. And that's one of the other things that we do for sustainability, is that we say, well, why don't you have just one garment that is very beautiful, done to last for a very long time, but then you can change the color through an app. So you can download millions of patterns to this garment and just have it feel fresh and new every day. And I remember the electronics factory all of a sudden was assembling these really thin, flexible textile substrate material with micro LED lights. And they finally put it together with conductive ribbons instead of wires. So we literally had to develop a range of new materials that didn't exist before to make a garment that can do something special, feel like a garment should feel soft and comfortable to wear. And finally, when all these people working in the electronics factory could finish the assembly and they saw the garment, they were like, it's amazing, I can't believe I did this. So there is this involving all the stakeholders that are part of the manufacturing process, that are in the supply chain, into the understanding of why we are doing something new and what the possibilities that doing this something new brings to wearers and to the industry. Interesting.
One of the things that I found in some of the experiments that we had done with some wearable technology were connectors. Connectors were such a challenge to figure out how to integrate them into apparel in a way that was flexible, that allowed people to feel comfortable, but allowed you to take the active electronic parts out of the garment. I think there's a whole new industry in understanding how to create these flexible connectors as part of the fashion industry.
Well, Michael, you just kind of hit the nail on the head with that word connectors, right? I mean, when we're talking about these supply chain challenges that Francesca was just talking about, it is about connecting the dots across these supply chains, across industries and around the world, right? That's how we're going to solve these things. And I think one of the most unique things about what happened going through the pandemic is that everyone's supply chains were disrupted. We all felt it when a package didn't come on time or we couldn't get something that wasn't available anymore, right? And so in that unique experience, we see what parts of the supply chains are broken and how we can fix that going forward. And a big part of that, right, is partnerships. There's a reason that the United Nations SDGs have number 17 is partnerships to accelerate these goals. That's been one of the most valuable things that we did as a business is working with people like the United Nations, like SAP, like MIT, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, right? Having these kinds of partnerships gives you access to data, technology, customers, solutions, and resources and materials to help us all build for that stronger, better future.
Great. One thing that I'd like to kind of ask you all individually is about your individual and personal journey to where you are today. You're really on the leading edge, and as I mentioned early on, you're now beacons that are really providing guidance and inspiration for another generation of entrepreneur and designer. What was the single biggest challenge that you faced as women in an industry that's really kind of heavily dominated and controlled by men? And here you are way out in front leading the future. So Stephanie, what was your first encounter with that kind of challenge?
You know, obviously being a woman in sustainability, a woman in technology right now, there are an incredible amount of community and access to resources that probably we didn't have years ago. That being said, of course, there are challenges. We've seen the statistics and the numbers when it comes to funding, right? And although I think by some accounts women run about 50% of the startups, they're getting less than 1% of the funding. And that has to change. That has to be about access to resource and capitals for women-run companies, and real dollars, right? Not just at pre-seed and seed, but all the way to going public or getting acquired. I think that is a challenge, but also an opportunity. The good news is a lot of funds in our investor community have really come behind this, and it just drives us even stronger to do what we do. I do what I'm doing for my children. I have my 5-year-old and my 1-year-old. I want them to have clean water to drink, clothes that aren't toxic to wear, and a planet to live on, and I'm not stopping till I do. That's what drives me every day.
Veronica, you have a really strong family that supports you and has been helpful. Have you encountered similar challenges to what Stephanie is talking about, where access to capital for women and the recognition of their leadership has been sometimes hard to get?
Oh yeah, I think definitely. And not just towards women, but also to the subject of sustainability. I remember couple years ago talking to peers in the industry and people literally turning around and running away from me when I want to talk about sustainability. Of course, that has changed dramatically in the recent years because everyone's talking about it. Consumers are asking for it. And, you know, businesses, they also see a financial case for being sustainable. But, you know, I believe it's much more than just a business number. I think we need every business to be sustainable in every single part so that we can continue to do things and to make beautiful things for us, for everyone. And I think, yes, there definitely has been challenge. I think I'm the one in my family that's pushing my siblings who are also in investments about doing more sustainable investing, more putting more dollars towards women and more impact type of investing. But I think the good thing is this year, I've seen a rise definitely in terms of the venture capitalist funds that are coming out, supporting more of the impact, sustainable type of investing. So it's definitely a good sign.
Yeah, that's great news. So thank you. Francesca, a little bit about your journey and the kinds of challenges that you faced as an enterprising and talented, smart, ambitious woman in a really tough industry.
Yes, definitely the technology industry has been really tough. I think in the last few years it has much improved, but I remember when I started the company many years ago, and I do have a male co-founder, Ryan Gans, and he's fantastic. And but I remember, like in the beginning, we would go to meetings in Italy where we had some of our suppliers and partners, and they would ask me if I was his interpreter. So I think that definitely there is a change in the industry, in which now when we go to meetings, they exactly know we are and what we're doing. So I think that there is really this mindset that women are not good with electronics or with engineering, with science and math. So one of the things that we do with the company is that we participate in many educational initiatives. We did a really wonderful one during the pandemic with NASA, in which we participated in the Humans to Mars project, and to inspire future generations of youth and women to think about engineering, science and math, and pursue the space exploration and what they could do with their skills in the future. So this is, for us, is very important, education, so that everybody can play in this field and make the most of it and bring new innovations to everyone.
I would say I'm at FIT, which is, I describe as 85% women, all alpha. So I'm around really driven, ambitious, smart, creative, hardworking women that have utterly floored all of our industry partners as they have developed absolutely remarkable solutions to creative problems that have involved taking fashion designers who spent most of their life in front of sewing machines, and they learned how to solder and program microchips to create a backpack that was followed a map that you laid out in your iPhone, and it would turn directional signals on automatically and turn vibrating haptic motors on your pants. So they thought through the entire system of what was the problem that they were solving. It was advancing our brand partners' sustainability initiative. We were working with POC Sports, which is based in Sweden, and they were launching a line of urban bicycle apparel, and the students took on the challenge of developing items that would help them be safe riding those bicycles. So they went all the way through to actually making the prototype, programming the prototype, and it was really remarkable to see how broad and how thoughtful the full systemic approach. And that's really the word that I feel like I'm using here today, because that's what's so clear about what the three of you have done, and I think really what the future needs. So I think we're running out of time. I could throw out, anybody have a question for me?
But thank you all so much. Thank you for having us, being here, and building for the future that we all want. We're excited.
It's really terrific. So, you know, with that, I think we've got the future is female. I can see that. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.